As a high school student, I had Miss Joswick for math. That is her real name because she changed my life, and she deserves that public recognition. Her involvement in my life monumentally changed the trajectory of where my life would go. She taught me math, even though I was not that good at it. She took me to summer camp. She was a great teacher who believed in kids, including me, who became an English teacher. She did not know that I would complete my PhD in one of the nation's top research institutions, but she believed in me. I admired her. I wanted to be the same type of teacher. The last time I was a high school teacher was before No Child Left Behind. I was young and my idealism was overbearing. I wanted to change the world. I wanted students to love Chaucer and Faulkner. I wanted my students to embrace the power of literature and how it can change lives. I believe that. I still believe that. Recently, I went into the high school classroom again after being an academic, and this experience changed my life. I believe there is a disconnect between colleges and K-12 schools. For years, I was a college professor. I never walked into a high school, yet I was teaching people how to be teachers. This felt wrong to me. I wanted to be a better professor, a better academic. So I returned to the high school classroom as a high school English teacher, and it changed my life. This process caused me to reflect on how schools fail students every day. Students are not prepared for college and the reality of what college entails. A few years ago, one of my college students asked for an amnesty project. I was slightly confused. I now realize what he meant. As a high school student, we were given amnesty projects to wipe away a year's worth of failing grades. We must think about things like this. As that college student came up to me, he wanted me to give him a project that would wipe away his F so that he would pass my college class. We do that in high schools now, and we are setting students up for failure. There's also the reality of standardized testing. It's destroying our schools. Our state places so much emphasis on scores, and that invalidate every day what we're doing. Students have learned to manipulate scores. During testing, the month of May is dedicated to the end-of-course exams. When my students completed it very quickly, I asked, "Hey, did you really do that?" They responded, "Dr. J, we figured it out. If I have a 92 in your class, I know what I have to do on the end-of-course test to still pass, and that's all I care about." On another occasion, the teacher next door to my room brought her kindergarten child to school. She was crying. She was weeping. I walked over and I asked her what was wrong. She responded, "I have to take a test, and my teacher told me that if I do not pass, she will lose her job." This is what testing has done to our schools. A 5-year-old girl is weeping and nervous because testing has stolen the love of learning from her, and it will only get worse as she goes through the school systems. Climate scores are also giving us a false sense of security. In my state, every spring, students are required to answer 150 questions about the school climate. Most of the students finished in 15 minutes. When I asked why, they all responded, "We do not want the resource officer to know what we did." Every school is graded with a climate survey, and a big part of that score comes from the survey. So if students are lying on the survey, it invalidates all the data. And this happens across the state. I asked other teachers around the state if this happened, and they all said that it did. Because our students had a school-sanctioned laptop, they thought that if they said, "Yes, I smoked pot," or "Yes, I drank a beer this weekend," that the moment that they put that in, that the resource officer would come down and take them away, that their parents would get in trouble. But yet there's a score attached to every school building in this state, and it's based on flawed data. And we are creating state policy based on flawed data. But it's not all bad. I remember the keyboard kids. I walked to get coffee from a colleague's room one day, and when I returned to my classroom, my door was open. I rarely left it open. I heard someone playing the keyboard. It was Hayden. He was jamming. When I opened the door, he was like, "Close the door." And I closed the door and I was like, "Dude, you're really good." And he was like, "Nobody can ever know about this because girls don't like guys who play the piano." Hayden had panic attacks because school stressed him out. The piano calmed him, and I allowed him to play the piano anytime he wanted. The keyboard released his academic stress. Charlotte was also a keyboard kid. I was playing one day, she walked into my resource room, and Charlotte is also a student with autism. She asked if she could play. And so every day she began to play this keyboard, and it changed her life. At the end of the school year, I walked with her out to her parents' van, and I had the keyboard, and she was like, "Dr. J, what are you doing with the keyboard?" And I said, "Charlotte, you got to promise me that you're going to play this keyboard every day." Her mom started crying, she started crying, but I knew that I needed to give this child this keyboard. I knew that I did. This experience also reinforced my belief in relational pedagogy. Relational pedagogy is the belief that teaching children matter. We have to focus on the child and not the content. We need to know about our kids. We need to know where they go to church. We need to know what their home life is about. We need to know that if a kid is sleeping in our room, it's because he's working at Publix trying to pay the electric bill. We need to know if he's from a single parent family. We need to know these things. But I'm afraid that because of standardized testing and some of the other things that are happening in schools, that we take away that relational aspect. And it's all about the content. But if we look at Nell Notting's notions of a curriculum of care, and we look at what it means to be a caring teacher in schools, that changed my life. Now in all of my classes at the academic level, I push relational pedagogy because I think that is important. Kids will do what you expect them to do if they know that you care about them. And so we've got to start caring about our kids. When a kid comes in from the playground and something's happened to him on the playground, he's been bullied, and he comes into his little second grade class and you have a set of rules, and he walks in and he wants to tell you what happened on that playground. And you said, "Not now, we have rules. Go sit down, we'll talk about it later." You have just said that that rule is more important than you. What happened to you on the playground mattered, but the rule is more important. So where do you find that space to create a relationship with your kids so that they know that they're more important than the rule, that they're more important than the content? As I sit at my desk looking at the empty chairs, I will always remember this classroom, this school, and this community changed my life and my perceptions of teaching. These students have reignited a desire to reclaim our educational system. The empty chairs beckon to me. The chairs remind me of all the students who sat in those seats over the years. The chairs remind me of the student who a teacher let sleep rather than engage the student in a meaningful relationship. The chairs remind me of the student who simply needed someone to care for him because his dad was in jail and his mom was absent. The chairs remind me of the student who was bullied and never found her place. The chairs remind me of me, a skinny Caucasian kid growing up in the southern American states. A kid searching because he was different. A nerdy kid who played sports. The chairs reminded me of a kid who Miss Joswick took to summer camp and believed not in who I was, but in whom I would become. The chairs called to me to remind me that each student who sits in them is a human being who deserves for someone to believe in him or her, someone to believe in his or her potential.